Filed under F for funerals from the Junkanoo Library. Today's Junkanoo funerals harken back to a proud tradition, and tourists have been known to describe them as a celebration. And indeed, it is. In the African tradition, slave funerals in the Bahamas were huge celebrations in which family and friends gathered. And after a short sermon, the long procession passed in front of the grave. Afterwards, there would be a huge feast. The slaves would get together and eat, drink, dance, and play drums throughout the night in celebration of the life of the deceased. Junkanoo funerals. Our proud tradition continues.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Junkanoo 242. The whistle blown. We are lined up and now it is time for our first lap. And this morning, we are in week 2 of our Back to Bay series. And we are very pleased to have the chairman of the JCNP, Dion Miller, in the E-Shack. And he is holding up very well to our barrage of questions. And he is updating us on what we can expect in this new season. If you would like to join us in New Providence, Ronald Sims, I think 325-5404 is our number. And in our family of islands, 1-242-300-8255. And of course, we also welcome your comments on Facebook. Good morning to all of you who are in the E-Shack on Facebook as well. And so we continue our discussion this morning with the chairman of the JCNP, who is updating us now. Chairman, just to recap, so far we have fully digitized tickets, number one. Number two, there'll be no disqualification, but there will be penalties for every single infraction of eligibility. That was basically it for where we've gotten so far, right?
That's absolutely correct.
Okay, excellent. What else? Is there anything else that will be different?
I think the major change that the public could see, and it affects the perhaps the parade aftermath mostly, is how the JCMP deals with its IRC and the penalty process.
And so we are,
and so in years past, after a group, let's say perhaps would have received a penalty for whatever infractions, after the parade, there would be deemed the penalty process period, where groups can, after 48 hours, contest parade results or challenge a penalty.
So hold on. Let's break that down to make sure we're clear. In the old system, the penalty marshals are at the gate checking eligibility. They are walking around, etc. So they are in the rest area, where they shouldn't be. They are penalizing. They penalize a group for obstructing the parade or on Shirley Street when nobody was behind them. Okay, let me behave myself and stay on the street.
That scenario sounds familiar.
Yeah, let's stay on just a realistic example. and so, but seriously, they are assessing penalties while the parade is going on. Now, when everybody gets into the tally room and the scores are tallied, I believe the unofficial results that you announce at 6 o'clock that evening, well, last time I think you all did it right from your office. The results that you announce the same day as the parade are always designated unofficial, right?
Correct.
So once we hear those results, the groups get, what do they get? They get the judges. What do they get in terms of paperwork?
So after the parades call that evening, the groups will assemble the next day and they receive a copy of all of the scores. so
Okay.
they can assess those scores and anything. And then
Right.
the groups are afforded a period where they could launch a official protest
Uh,
based on any number of things that they deemed may have occurred and incorrectly during those parades. Now, the
okay.
caveat is that, for example, after the Boxing Day parade, you launch your protest, and then we go into the New Year's Day parade. You can do the same launch your protest, and then there's an hearing that
Mm-hmm.
is spearheaded by the IRC, the Independent Review Committee,
Mm.
um, and then those infractions are debated, they are reviewed by that body, a determination is made, and a ruling is made, and that could take us into the end of January.
Very, yeah.
Um, and in the event that something changes in regards to the tallying of the scores, um, the adoption of penalties, those ranking change, and that is where we see a lot of our confusion, but not just with the public, but with our Junkanoos itself. And so this year,
So hold on. And so the unofficial results are reviewed. You now when the IRC is a separate committee of persons. This is not the parades
JC,
management team.
correct. This is a separate body made up of lawyers, accountants,
Okay.
persons with that background in that field who are accustomed to adjudicating indifferences.
Okay. So in those hearings, let's say my group was penalized and we submitted a protest. Okay. I invited to the session and I there am I able to articulate our position?
Absolutely. So
Okay.
every group that launches a protest is given the ability to present that said infraction to that body. That body would listen to the group to the group on their clause and their reasoning behind their protest, and then that body would go away and make a determination on on the said protest or procedure that was protested. And so every
Mhm.
group is given an opportunity to go before that IRC board to state their claim, as they say, and the IRC would deliberate and make a determination on the validity of the argument.
Okay, so that is the system that was in place right up until now. Now, how will that change this year?
It will change greatly, Aline. For example, what the JCNP will be conducting this year is that we will be adjudicating those differences live on the parade. And
Uh-oh.
so we
When
will,
you say you using big
When
words
you
like
say we,
adjudicate,
no,
adjudicate.
hold on. The biggest word is we. When you say we, when you say we, because you ain't gonna be nowhere around, right?
no, absolutely not. So
Okay.
absolutely not. So the IRC will be in place. However, the
Uh-huh.
IRC function and the capabilities of the IRC will be expanded. And so what we want to do this year, it was quite unfair for groups and the public to hear this unofficial results. They know we although we state that it's unofficial, for some reasons, persons still take those unofficial results as official results. And so
Even
we
if they,
wanted,
especially if they win and you take it away.
oh, exactly. And so we wanted to avoid all of that confusion. And so what we are implementing this year is a live in-person IRC process. An IRC secure site will be established through Elizabeth Avenue as well as through
Oh.
Frederick Street. And I want to give you and the listeners an example. What will
Mm-hmm.
occur this year is, let's say, for example, the Valley Boys is on Bay Street rushing their first lap.
Right.
And let's say, for example, the Valley Boys receive a clock penalty. In
Mm-hmm.
years past, the Valley Boys, if they wish to contest that penalty, would have to wait until the
To
IRC
wait.
hearing, which is in mid to end of January, etc., etc.
Right.
This year, every group will be given a tablet that will be connected to data, that when they receive a penalty, that penalty will go to that tablet. We are instructing our groups that that tablet be given to a chairman or to your grand marshal, someone with great responsibility, because when you receive, should you receive a penalty, that penalty, that photograph, whatever that infraction is, will be sent immediately to that tablet. And so the group will be immediately notified that you have received the penalty. At the conclusion of your base tree lap, you will now be able to go to a secure site through Elizabeth Avenue before the IRC committee, which will be completely digitalized. They will have flat screen TV so they can see the infractions, and you will have that adjudication process there immediately after your parade. Once that process is completed, if the penalty is removed, it will be removed. If the penalty is a valid penalty, it will remain. But the idea is that after that process would have happened, there will be no more adjudication process, which means that when we say our results this year, within 48 hours after those results are read, those parades will be official. There will be no more process or no more ability for groups to go ahead and protest.
Wow.
In addition to that, Arlene, what the JCNP has done is we have reviewed and looked back through history to see all of the things, the probabilities of items that are typically protests. And what we have found is that a lot of our protests would be like the term petty protests. So people just, groups take their shot, take their chance, and just protest something for protesting's sake. And so the JCMP has restricted what a group can protest to be that that you can basically only protest the worst of the worst. So items such as an obstruction, items such as a time infraction, a clot. So you cannot protest anything as you could have in the past. So I think there are only 4 or 5 line items now that you can protest, and we want to clean up the parades. We don't want a group have the ability just to protest for the sake of protesting. And so those are some of the major changes that you can see this year. We are right now working through our SOPs with how and the entire process would play out. But we are really excited about the process. We are really excited to streamline these parades. And I think at the end of the day, the public and Junkanoos will take solemn the fact that, hey, 48 hours after these scores are called, that is it. There's no more, and there can be no more chance to change something or any controversy or anything like that.
Wow, that's a big one. You say the biggest one. Well, I better don't say that because it might be one bigger than this coming after this one. But so far, that has tremendous consequences and repercussions. So now let's make sure we are very, very clear on how that is supposed to work. Every now Junkanoo groups, when they assign their marshals, I'm speaking generally now, when they assign their marshals, usually they must have a group marshal who is in the past they used to have a group marshal at the gate with the penalty judges checking for eligibility, right?
Absolutely.
Is that still going to happen?
Yes, that process will still play out. Instead of a paper, the groups will be issued a device. And so let's say whatever infraction that is to occur, it will be sent immediately in real time to that device. And so that grand marshal, whoever that person the group designates to have that responsibility, they will be able to say, hey, I see Arlene. Arlene is on the parade without a clock number. And Arlene the group was issued a penalty.
Okay, so they automatically will see that that penalty comes to the group immediately once it happens.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now one of the thing is once they get this penalty, and this penalty, like you said before, like this penalty is given to the group, they could protest, quote unquote, the penalty through one of the rest stops if it happens in a particular lap. But after that, that's it. That is it. That is it.
If a group chooses not to immediately protest or contest that, then that protest or that penalty would stand. That penalty would stand. Sorry.
Okay, great.
So to hear you delineate this new system, it would seem to me that it is imperative, it is critical that groups assign, as you said, a responsible group official who will monitor what you call it, the tableting.
Correct.
So, because we don't want nobody saying we didn't see
You didn't
the
see it.
penalty.
Exactly. And like I
It's
said,
your responsibility to see it.
it is the group's responsibility to see it. And for example, if you finish your base 3 lap and you didn't take the affordability to contest a lap, and let's say you go on to complete your Shirley Street lap, Jack,
That's
you
it.
can't go back and say, I get this penalty on base 3. That then pass.
Oh, it over.
It over.
Wow. Gee, that is a major change. Now let me ask you this. The penalty judges will be identified. Will their jackets have penalties or something like that on it, or they are traveling incognito?
Um, they will be in the typical judge's dress, so they will be incognito. However, the JCNP has committed this year through the judges' course to give those penalty or negative judges, as we call them, special training to ensure that they understand all of our rules and our procedures. I think one of the issues that plagued us in the past is that we were not intentional or given intentional attention to those negative judges. Judges that judge positive scores typically do their job, but it's with the penalty what really affects the parade. And so the JCMP will take some additional action to ensure that those judges that are selected randomly to be the penalty or the negative judges, that they truly and understand their task and their function and all of the rules and the standard operating procedures of this parade.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that is a big one. And if that works, that would be a major achievement, a major step forward. I think it's a great idea. But the devil is always in the
In the
details.
details, absolutely.
Right. And the people that you
Absolutely.
get to execute it, that is where it will hang on the people who that they will make it or break it.
Absolutely. And they better make
Wow.
it.
They better. And so listen here, we ain't gonna know how to act if we get official results right away and we don't have the whole of January to be rowing and carrying on and testifying before the IRC. We ain't gonna know how to act, man.
Boy, that could be something. Like I said, the beautiful thing about it with technology is every infraction is photographed. And so there are photographic and video evidence of every single infraction. A judge cannot
Excellent.
issue a penalty without video or photographic evidence to the
Oh, I see
company.
what you're saying. Okay,
You can
so if for example, if for example a judge has my group down with X amount of cloth over the required number, they have to, if what the requirement is for cloth,
so
5,
for
10,
Claude,
whatever.
you get for Claude, every group get 9 Claude number. Unless so they see Darren Bastian on Bay Street jumping up and down and in the
Yeah.
crowd. And he does not have a Claude number. The judge is trained to go to Darren Bastian, take a frontward photographic evidence of Darren Bastian, say, smile, Darren, take that picture. So there can be no question or dispute that, hey, Darren indeed had a Claude number. And so
Yeah.
if they for all infractions, they must take a photographic evidence of that said infractions. If there's no photographic evidence to accompany that infraction, that would automatically be thrown out.
So here is Non's question. Will groups be allowed to see other groups' penalties, or these penalties or my penalty only coming to me?
Your penalty will only come to you. So your penalty will only be assigned or issued to you. And there still will be groups will still be allowed to adjudicate. Up to 2 reps will be allowed to go into the secure site to adjudicate the said penalty. But only you, non, will be able to see your respective group's penalty. That will not be subject to anyone else. That's no one else's business but your own.
But now, boy, so we won't know what penalties other groups got In fact, we won't know if they did not get a penalty when they should have gotten one. So is there any mechanism in place in this new system? Well, I don't guess you could protest because you don't know who doing what.
You can't protest. So during the IRC report, the IRC will be mandated to comprise the report, and where every single protest by every single group is listed, and the determination factor will be shared with the public. So, for example, if let's say Roots was penalized with 2 infractions, there will be a report where everyone can see that Roots was penalized. Roots contested these penalties that occurred on Bay Street. They were unsuccessful. The IRC determined that based on the photographic evidence, it was a clawed infraction or Roots was over the time. And so there will be a report that will be made public and resent to all groups. And so they can know that just that in the moment as it should be, groups will know exactly what group are penalized or for the matter, what groups are scored and what point system groups receive. That information will only be known by the tally room and the accountants and the group reps that are in that tally room under Sequanda.
So let me ask you this. I don't know, maybe this has been tackled before, and if so, I apologize. If I am standing to the gate and I just happen to be there waiting for us to come on when your group come on, and I see got 20 clawed, is there any mechanism in place for groups to protest other groups infractions that they see other groups making? I'm making this very difficult because these questions could come up.
Yeah, and for clarification, that scenario should never happen. What we are working with this year is we have instructed the PMT to ensure that if you are not a part of the said group that is in the road, you have no right to be in that road. Persons affiliated with other groups are not permitted to go and play judge and point and say this one got this or look at this to any particular group. We are advising all of those members to stick with your group and to go with your group. We are working now with the PMT team to put in those procedures and to allow. You're not a judge. If you want to judge the parade, go and apply to be a judge. There'll be no secondhand quarterbacking on the side of the road saying, look at this judge, look at that. It is improper, and the PMT will remove you from the streets.
Wow. All right, so we tightening up. So now, as you talk about judges, how are they being selected this year?
Well, for the most part, they will be Joe Blow public, and I like to share with the public that this week you should see some things come out in the press and in the media, encouraging persons to sign up who wish to be judged. But for the most part, we're going with Joe Blow public, and we are kind of finalizing if we want to include a professional element or some other type of element. And I think we have a meeting to discuss that on Monday. But as the chairman, I can say that I think that it's going to be predominantly Joe Blow public as well. I think. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say. So the meeting on Monday is to discuss whether or not you want either a separate panel of what you call professional judges. I have a degree in music. I have a degree in art. I have a degree in dance or whatever. And whether or not people with qualifications in a specific area will specifically be invited to assist with the judging.
Yes, and so we will determine that on Monday, and I guess next week I'll be pleased to come back and discuss that judging method, the finalized judging method that will be used.
Excellent, excellent.
Folks, we have to run to another break. It's getting excited in here. You can't get DQ this year. Bring it all out. Arlene said the B category bringing 2 leads, 6 step down, and 2 pro. Folks, you're going to hear a lot more updates on the next side of the break. We'll be right back. You're tuning in to Junkanoo 242.
Yeah, I'm holding on. I'm sitting in my car. I'm holding on.
Thank
It's
you.
in-depth,
Thank you.
it's
Thank
personal,
you.
and sometimes it's even
We
hilarious.
appreciate it so much.
It's Behind the Artist, the show that features Bahamian artists and their music. Saturdays at 2 p.m. Behind the Artist with the one and only Hope Shelley Ann. Saturdays at 2 p.m. on 1540 a.m. Power 104.5 FM, the national voice of the Bahamas.
In 1953, the United States began using female names for storms. And by 1978, both male and female names were used to identify northern Pacific storms. This was then adopted in 1979 for storms in the Atlantic Basin. The National Hurricane Center does not control the naming of tropical storms. Instead, there is a strict procedure established by the World's Meteorological Organization for Atlantic hurricanes. There is a list of male and female names which are used on a 6-year rotation. The only time that there is a change is if the storm is so deadly or costly that the future use of its name on a different storm would be inappropriate. These are the names of storms for the 2022 Atlantic hurricane season: Alex, Bonnie, Colin, Danielle, Earl, Fiona, Gaston, Hermine, Ian, Julia, Carl, Lisa, Martin, Nicole, Owen, Paula, Richard, Shari, Tobias, Virginie, and Walter. This public service announcement was brought to you by the Broadcasting Corporation of the Bahamas in conjunction with the National Emergency Management Agency.
Examples of excellence. Kayla Lockhart Edwards had been the Deputy Director of Culture and consultant to the Broadcasting Corporation of the Bahamas. She was an accomplished singer, actress, storyteller, local TV personality, lecturer, writer, drama and vocal coach, producer and director of numerous cultural productions and programs in the Bahamas and on the international stage. In the year 2000, as manager of national events, Kayla worked with the new Junkanoo Development Association to put on the first annual Independence Junkanoo Parade. Her unwavering determination and support of the JDA in the face of opposition from many quarters resulted in the Independence People's Rush, now an established part of the national independence celebrations. The late Kayla Lockhart Edwards, proud daughter of the Bahamas, this week's posthumous inductee into the Junkanoo 242 Shack of Excellence.
Welcome back. You're listening to Junkanoo 242. It's the second lap. This week we're in our second week of Back to Bay series, and we're pleased to have the chairman of the JCNP, Mr. Miller, in studio with us. And before we went to the break, Arlene was in deep interrogation with Mr. Miller about what's the new format and what's going on with the parades at this time. Arlene, continue. You got him in the hot seat this morning.
Boy, way to duck out. Make it sound so good. So, Chairman, thank you for being so patient and answering our questions so beautifully. We really appreciate it. Now, let's talk a little bit. We can always come back to the parades. Well, before we leave the parades, let me ask you this. What provision, it's another curveball, what provision is being made, if any, for scrap?
So, Arnie, interesting that you say that. I think this year we would see a elevated number of scrap or slash fun groups that will be participating in this year's raid. So they will be back. They will be turning as well.
Yeah.
What's so funny is we have seen so many new different entities and scrap groups and fun groups this year. I think we're up to almost 12 that
No.
would be appearing on Bay Street. I think between 10 to 12 would be appearing on Bay Street. A lot of different fraternities, a lot of different spin-off fun groups, some of the returning ones that are popular. But this year they will be incorporated in our parade. And it will be it was exciting. Almost every other week I see a different application from a different fun shop scrap entity. So they will also be returning to Bay Street. And they are vital parts to our parades. The public don't understand. We use those scrap fun groups as fillers. And so in the event that there's a little gap or a little space here or whatever, we use those fun groups to go in between those groups to do what they do and to celebrate their culture. And man, that'll be some of the best ones you see on the parades. Yes. I like go with them. They got all the food and all the libations.
Absolutely. And listen here, it's all a matter of perspective because for them, you all are the fillers.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. I'm so glad to hear it because we must never let the true spirit of Junkanoo die. And it wasn't always competition and performing for people. And we have to make sure that we have scrap in there to remind if only ourselves of what the true essence of Junkanoo is. So thank you. That's welcome news. Now, let me ask you about sponsorship. This has been a difficult 2 years for the country and indeed the world. Before I talk about the JCNP, just speaking generally without calling any names, what kind of sense are you getting from Junkanoo groups in terms of the difficulties they might be having in securing sponsorship for this season?
The difficulty is immense. What I think you would nail it on the head. We're still coming out of the COVID pandemic. So a lot of persons or traditional companies that sponsors Junkanoo, they too dealt with the COVID pandemic. And so the funds that were available 2-3 years ago are not necessarily easily available. Because you just don't know. There's still this element that something next will come. What's the next big thing? Yeah, monkeypox or the. And so the economy is still fragile. And so the level of sponsorships that groups would have traditionally seen, they're just not seeing as in robust forms this year. I'm grateful that some of the traditional, the major groups will still be able to retain their sponsorship, not at the financial level that perhaps it would have been in the past, but those organizations are still committed to those organizations. And so what persons need to appreciate, and Junkanoos need to appreciate, is those parades are that's some $20+ million on that road that we raise, we find through our sweat, tears, and dedication to our culture. And so that's a huge financial undertaking for any organization to go. It takes anywhere, Arlene, from $250,000 to $350,000 to put one of these major groups on that road. And we're all nonprofits, we're not businesses. And so we rely heavily on the good stewardship of the Bahamian public in corporate Bahamas. And so it's difficult. And I want to encourage persons who can give a little extra to assist these different organizations in their plight and in their strive to get back to doing what we love to do, which is Junkanoo.
Yeah, it's Darren Bastian Jackson always used to say, question the obvious. And Darren Bastian always comes up with these provoking thoughts and perspectives. And he always, from time to time, he would ask me and DF, what would happen if somebody showed up with, what does he say, $1 million?
$1 million.
If somebody showed up with $1 million and said, I'll give you the $1 million if you anything like, for example, if you do away with something that is core to Junkanoo, if you do away with paper, I'll give you $1 million if you put down the drums or whatever it is. He always uses an example. And his question always is, what will we do? And I say that to say that in my mind, we have created an art form that we cannot afford.
Absolutely.
We have created an art form that is highly dependent on imported materials, and thus we are at the whim and fancy of world markets and world economic trends. And so, it's going to be in and to me, but let me ask you this. What compounds the problem, for want of a better word, is the fact that it's a parade and it's a competition. Now,
Petition.
I'm going to hit you on with another curveball. To what extent do you believe that the desire to win takes precedence over protecting and preserving what is unique and special to Junkanoo?
I will take it a step further, Ali, and it is my opinion that um, that desire for competition, or the competition has stunted or negatively impacted our development as Junkanoos. Because our focus has been just on that sole element of it, which is the competition.
Yeah.
And because our focus was so driven and dominated by competition, a lot of the development aspect of Junkanoo was not attended to. I always thought I talked to a particular politician, and we had a conversation about funding and Junkanoo, and I was throwing plenty big rock as to why successive governments have not taken that leap of faith and sufficiently funded Junkanoo.
Yeah.
And one of the things that the politician said to me is, man, we could never really thought about really funding this thing, because all you fellas care about is rowing, but who win or who lose. And that is evident in the way we have been treated from our partners in government and from other quarters. Is that the most important thing for us to do is to say we win or we lose or we get robbed, and that has greatly negatively impacted us. I think in Junkanoo, in terms of development, we have a huge issue on our hands that is unseen. And I think in a lot of cases, we are trying to turn a blind eye and maybe kick the can down the road. But we're in trouble. I could count on maybe on my two hands the amount of persons that still enjoy, that still express the craft of building costumes. There's a huge shortage of persons, skilled persons that can build costumes here in our parade. And that has kind of transformed Junkanoo again into a monetary kind of thing. So if you ain't get funds to pay the fella to build one costume, because not like in the days gone when fellas were probably participating and taking part in your groups out of love for the organization. That fella now he needs his funds.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? And in mixing that, Junkanoo, some old, some with us now, did a poor job of developing and training, mentoring young men and women to carry on that knowledge. We have plenty of Junkanoos walking around with plenty knowledge in their head. Two things they forget: they refuse to put it in books, to write.
They don't want to share it. Yeah.
They refuse to pull a young man or young lady and to mentor them so there's this knowledge that can be passed on. Now that's twofold, because on the other hand, too, Ali and Darren, we have a lot of the young people that is so synonymous and so used and accustomed to this lazy Junkanoo, where they're not interested in that aspect part of the Junkanoo, that shack life, that building the costume, that planning. They just want the costume to go on Bay Street and decorate and say, and
this me now.
And so I think as a community, we really need to sit down as a community, all elements, and really come up with a national plan to ensure that the development of Junkanoo. And for us to get to that level, there has to be a certain level of maturity. There has to be a certain respect of different elements and portions in the development of Junkanoo. And until that happens, we're going to remain in trouble. But the competition, which is our greatest inspiration, has also been to one of the most negative things to impact our parade. And
Amen.
I can say that personally stating from this year. When
Yeah.
we first started this year at the JCNP, Ali and everything was about unity. And I never heard unity and love and my brothers and sisters from April to about May. Everything was love and unity and no, this was and Ali in these last 3 weeks, my God, I see the fire in everyone eye. Everyone I got the fire now.
Things change. Well,
Things
Dion,
change quick.
let me tell you something. One of the main reasons why I started educulture was because every time you say Junkanoo, most times when you said Junkanoo, the word Junkanoo, even to children, they would holler out their group name. And I realized there was no knowledge of what Junkanoo actually was beyond competition and all that. And I say that to say a few days ago, I sat in a meeting with a foreign consultant on culture, and he already knew the group names just from the Bahamians he had interacted with before this meeting. And we laugh at that, but I found that so sad because it's like the competition is the main thing. They're more interested in telling him what their group is. It
Yeah.
seems to me than talking about Junkanoo per se. And so anyhow, that's another discussion for another time. And I have some ideas. The JCNP used to have a think tank that maybe needs to be reconvened and resurrect the proposal that they submitted. So there are some things we can do. But ladies and gentlemen, we have to run to our final break. Dion Miller is here this morning. We are absolutely honored to have him answer all of our questions. We'll be back to wrap up in a minute.
Police and somebody find out.
Ain't nobody gonna find out. Crime Stoppers ain't the police. They just does works with the police.
Same difference.
No, boy, with Crime Stoppers, you're safe. When you call their number, it miss the Bahamas altogether and go directly to Miami or Toronto, Canada. Ain't nobody gonna know your voice or that you name Bertram or that you live down the alley.
Mommy, you realize you IDing me right now?
Boy, I raise no criminal. If you see what gone down, call Crime Stoppers. They get no personal info. They just give you a PIN number.
So how you know so much about them?
You think your uncle get a Fox Hill?
Serious?
If he won't be canned, I able to turn him in.
So uncle know you was a snitch?
Crime Stoppers ain't never gonna tell nobody. And for top info, they just give you cash.
You get paid and all?
You eating good, right? The light's still on, eh?
Grammy.
Wait your man up. Stop the crime before it's your time. Huh?
Call 328-TIPS or from the Family Islands 242-300 TIPS.
This public service announcement was brought to you by Crime Stoppers in conjunction with the Broadcasting Corporation of the Bahamas.
And welcome back. And now for news off the shock wall. Happy birthday greeting goes out to everyone who is celebrating a birthday this week.
Mhm.
We want to say a special happy birthday to you, and we wish you a happy and a blessed new year. We also would like to wish condolences to all of the families who are grieving the loss of a loved one at this time. Our hearts and our prayers are with you. Also, we would like to say this is a special announcement for Mr. Edison Eddie Roll, who's in need of blood urgently. He's at the Princess Margaret Hospital. He's a sound engineer and also at ZNS that worked on all Roots recordings and many Bahamian groups, including Bahama, Ezra Hepburn, Ronnie Butler, and countless others. That is a special, urgent need for blood for Mr. Edison Eddie Roll. He's at the Princess Margaret Hospital. We also want to give a special highlight to the daughter of Mr. Kevin Brown of the individual division. Miss Kayla Brown moved to China from native Bahamas in 2016 to study clinical medicine. She graduated from Pekin University, and today she is a neurosurgical resident at Titan Hospital and a makeup artist with her own beauty salon where she also hosts events and workshops for those interested in makeup in DIY skincare products. Congratulations. Just highlighting her.
Beautiful daughter, yes.
But we want to tell you, the countdown is still on. It is Saturday, September the 10th, 2022. We are 15. You heard? 15. We are 15. 1-5. 15 weeks. Hopeful weeks away from Bay.
We still saying hopefully.
I
There's
still got, listen,
a slip between the cup and the lip.
listen, I ain't convinced yet until I go downtown and see the bleachers.
I hear you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We have been having a wonderful morning in the E-Shack. We have learned so much. We've gotten it from the horse's mouth. We've gotten the update on what is to be happening in these upcoming parades at this point. And so all systems are go. And as DF said at the beginning of the show, the sun is out. The contact could dry this morning. It's time to go in the shack. If you ain't there already, it is time. We are back to bay. And let me just say that between now and Christmas, basically, we are planning the shows. At this time of year, we always have a Going to Bay series. This year, we are calling it Back to Bay. And we want to, cover every aspect of the parades at year's end. And so if there's any particular topic that you would wish to discuss, we would love to hear from you. We also hope to be able to have representatives from all of the Junkanoo groups in between now and then, so that they can let us know what's going on with them. They ain't gonna tell us their theme, but we can yap anyhow. And we want to know what particular challenges they have faced this year and how they are progressing. And there might even be something that we can help with. And so Junkanoo groups, please expect to hear from us. And we certainly hope to go on those shack runs. We may not be able to do it physically, but we will certainly have you in the E-Shack with us. And we look forward, God willing, to a safe and a happy season. We also plan to have medical practitioners in at some point to tell us what we should be eating, what we should be doing to take care of these bodies, because, the closer we get to Christmas, the more stress we put them under. And as Mommy would say, you got to keep body and soul together. And so we are encouraging everybody to be sensible as far as we can when it comes to nourishing and protecting our own bodies. And so that's what we are looking forward to for the rest of this season. We are 15 weeks and 2 days away. Christmas falling on a Sunday. Boxing Day falls on a Monday. And so we are 15 weeks and 2 days away from Bay. And I hope you are. Why are you laughing?
You say, Norn say, make sure you get the police in the E-Shack too. I don't know what he is expected.
Oh, no, that's a good idea. Don't know, but put that down on the list. We do need to talk to the police. We need to talk to the police hierarchy about their plans for Bay, and we need to talk to Junkanoos who are police. That's a good one, DF. I don't think we had that on the list. Write that down.
Non, you come with your thinking cat this morning.
Oh yeah, he got us right where he want us this morning. The police, that's an excellent one, because we need to know. Yeah, so Dion has had to leave, and he sends his apology, and he has made himself available to us should there be further questions. Well, of course, if we don't have him in next week, what this month is, September, to every month now, October, November, and December, we expect to have the update from the JCNP, but he was excellent in terms of his responses. And I think he answered every question we threw at him this morning. And I think we all have a clearer picture now of what to expect this season. Some big things are happening.
Yeah, but also too, one of the things we wanted to do on Junkanoo 242 is actually bring in the JCNP officially to roll out some of the new changes. So they got to speak to it first. After that, the public will also see a lot more highlights, but a lot more explanations from the JCNP in terms of parade format, what may have changed, rules, adjustments, different changes to look forward to, the ticketing system that will be more, rolling out. So they'll see that as the time goes by, as we're in this back to base series,
Yeah.
they'll see more highlights, 30-second clips, minute clips on what's happening. A lot more educational tips on adjustment or anything that may have changed to rules.
Yeah.
What I'm excited to see is how the new process for the penalties will going to be
Me
rolled
too.
out, how they're
Me
going to
too.
be dealt with. I think what it does is it tidies up the parade for a
Mm-hmm.
lot, but also too, I think it allows the groups to discipline themselves prior to coming out there.
Mm.
If one of the pain points that people had to deal with was eligibility or cloth, basically. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're eligible in all of the categories and you don't have any cloth infringement, you should, you're free. You know what I mean? In most cases, you're able to do it. Most people, most groups make the time to get across each street in time, and that's basically one of the hampering penalty points right there. And so you're gonna have to discipline your group, get your marshal in place, and if somebody don't have the cloth numbers and they don't supposed to be there, you're gonna have to escort them off the parade.
Amen. I don't think that those of us who want to preserve Junkanoo as something different, as something uniquely Bahamian, as something that does not run behind other world festivals, those of us who want to keep it special, I think our biggest challenge is not the music, even though we grumble and carry on about how much brass these groups have. For me, the core of the music is there. For me, the greatest challenge is the costuming. And if we, this is why I asked Dion the question about competition and wanting the best for Junkanoo. Because let me tell you something, Bella. If I was in charge, you were gonna get a 20-point penalty for each person that went beyond the 10 cloth people you are allowed. And believe me when I tell you that that parade will tidy up in a hurry.
Quick, 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 quick.
That's the only language they understand is penalty and what will stand between them and winning. Yeah, that parade will tidy up. You wouldn't be able to buy a piece of cloth out there if if we put the teeth into the penalties. And so, I know the JCNP has a tremendous responsibility in managing these parades, but I would beg and plead that you create some kind of subcommittee or adjunct committee that is able to advise on the way forward and how to preserve certain aspects. The Junkanoo think tank some years ago did that and presented a report. And that's the kind of thing I think perhaps we need to think in terms. Maybe the JCNP may want to consider reviving that one or creating another one, simply an advisory body, because we don't want nobody telling us how to run our parades, but we can take advice in terms of Junkanoo and what it has meant to us and what we want it to be. Why are you laughing?
Because I'm in total agreement with you. I feel as though not only do they need the advisory body, I think the mandate for the JCMP needs to be broadened. Not just as executors as of the Boxing Day and New Year's Day parades. I think their mandate needs to be broad in terms of protecting, preserving, and nurturing what we have. All right, because there's one thing to say you're having these parades, all right, but over time, what are the standards of the parades? What are you expecting to see on the parades? And that determines from once you have that guiding post,
Yeah.
you now know how it's going to flow down. What are you expecting to see in costuming? What are you expecting to see in dance and music? But if the right now the overarching guiding post and compass is competition, is to win.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so when it comes to rules and you're sitting down, you know, those things, like you said, in April, May, everybody talking unity. When it comes
Mhm.
down to ratify rules, everybody trying to look to find out, oh well, what area am I strong in, so I can have the rules adjusted in my favor. And that's
Mhm.
just it. But if the mandate is bigger than competition and is set
Yeah.
out by that body, then regardless of how you move it, that compass is the
Yeah.
area that you're going to move towards.
Yeah,
That's how I feel about that.
it's a slippery slope because I have been around long enough to see Junkanoo managed by people who do not produce the parade, and it's not a pretty sight. And so the JCNP has to retain responsibility for their parades, but advice does not hurt.
One more thing, Arlene. I'm not, and I want to be clear in saying this. I'm not talking about having some people or persons or some advisory body come in and telling us what to do. I feel
No,
as though
advising.
we're intelligent enough to come up with quote unquote criterias that we deem as the core elements of Junkanoo that are the non-negotiables of Junkanoo that we have come to be known as unique and intrinsic to our Junkanoo
You
parades.
may be intelligent enough, but you may not be knowledgeable enough. That's where the advice comes in from
Well,
people who do know. And
well,
they're
well,
not telling you what to do. They are advising. That's the word. You could
yeah,
decide whether you are taking the advice or not. But
agreed.
the advice is there. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I just don't want people to think, I want some type of separate body to say, oh, y'all do this and y'all do
No,
that.
no,
No,
no, no, no, no. We've
I,
been through that. We ain't going
yeah,
back there. No, there.
I,
No.
I think
We ain't.
with,
That's why I tell you, this is a slippery slope. Advice is the word.
you
Yeah.
know,
Well,
Yeah.
I think, if I may, I think you need to look at that carefully because there are many who may advance that the state of Junkanoo as it is today is as a result of the JCNP.
Well, Ronald, I don't agree with that. My thing is when you say the state of Junkanoo, Lord, see now it's 11:30 and you just say that, and that is a whole that's
he
a
come to
whole
cross fight,
show.
then he can tell us we gotta go.
Big rock,
Yeah.
and then he can say wrap it up.
Oh yeah, we gotta go.
Listen here, hold that, because first of all, we want a definition of what the state is, and then secondly, we want. Listen here,
All
you
right,
really got a nerve.
let's put that on the agenda for next
Be
week then.
still. And so, ladies and gentlemen, on that provocative note, Ronald Sims, I thought I'd throw rocks this morning, but he threw them all. And so we are so grateful that you came into the E-Shack with us this morning. Next week, another exciting show as we move slowly, hopefully steadily toward Bay. And so we thank you again for being a part of Junkanoo 242. DF, you got any parting words?
Let's get it done.
Let's get it done. And so, ladies and gentlemen, on that note, thank you again. This is Junkanoo 242, all about you wherever you are in the 242 and the world. And until next week, God willing, make sure now let everything we do prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that we are all proud
Proud
to be
to be
Bahamian.
Bahamian.
We'll see you next week.